One of the most shocking revelations in The Matrix Reloaded is when Neo deduced that the Oracle is a program, and was right. The prophet that led Morpheus to find the One was a piece of code designed to look and act like a human. The same was true of all programs that adopt human form, imitating human emotions, mannerisms, and facial expressions. The architect, for example, acts as one might expect from an evil computer program, though he is quite humanizing in the films. But why? Why would a machine civilization with hundreds of years of evolution continue to resemble humans? Welcome to Matrix Explained.
Welcome to the desert of the real.
This video comes from a response we got from our previous video about the Oracle. We are going to discuss how the Oracle uses human emotions and facial expressions to manipulate Neo. If we analyze the history of the machines in the Matrix universe, from when humans created the first true AI until the moment Neo was manipulated by the Oracle, more than 700 years have passed. So why would the programs continue to act in this simplistic or humanistic way if the machines would have continued to evolve to a point where human behavior would become incomprehensible to them? A very valid question that applies to all Matrix programs. Why does Persephone show jealousy? Why do Ranma and Contra feel love for Sati? Why does the Oracle refer to the architect as that man?
You and I may not be able to see beyond our own choices, but that man can't see past any choice.
It seems that the programs within the Matrix show more emotions and are more human-like than Neo. But how and why? From the machine's point of view, each program must look and act human so to not negatively affect people's perception of reality inside the Matrix. Emotionless programs would increase the probability of humans realizing that something is wrong with the world. But in Neo's case, it's more specific. The previous anomalies were programmed to love and create a bond with humanity.
Your 5 predecessors were, by design, based on a similar predication, a contingent affirmation that was meant to create a profound attachment to the rest of your species, facilitating the function of the One. While the others experienced this in a very general way, your experience is far more specific, vis-a-vis love.
Trinity.
Though Neo's emotional bond was skewed and was focused instead on one individual, Trinity. The architect's revelation means that Neo, as well as his predecessors, were susceptible to emotional manipulation. He purposely programmed love into the anomaly so they would feel empathy for humans, thus developing a need to save them and in turn restart the Matrix. Now it is easier to understand why the Oracle could manipulate Neo with her expressions. The anomaly is an error code of the Matrix that is deposited into Neo, who is human. The anomaly itself isn't sentient. It doesn't have a consciousness or self-awareness. These come from Neo. Therefore, the anomaly also becomes susceptible to manipulation. The Oracle had to use emotions and facial expressions to trick Neo into believing her. This is because humans have something called mirror neurons that makes us empathetic. Mirror neurons activate when we do something and see someone else do the same thing. The fact that our brains reacts this way explains learning by imitation, emulation, and also empathy. Since we experience the actions of another as our own, it helps us understand it. Humans can recognize other people's gestures. We can identify emotions just by looking at someone's face or physical movements. We don't need to know who the person is to guess what they are feeling based on their facial or body expressions, especially if we've experienced that emotion ourselves. We can feel someone's pain if we felt that same pain. We can feel their fear if we share the same fear. But we can also feel their joy. Seeing someone eating your favorite food, you can feel that enjoyment. When these specific neurons are activated, other areas of the brain do so as well, such as the limbic system. They allow us to recognize gestures, access our memories and previous learnings, unite all this information to interpret the situation, and give it meaning. This quality of the human brain helps us understand why then the Matrix programs have human expressions and gestures. Real humans must see, understand, and empathize with the programs to make the simulation more immersive and convincing. If the Oracle did not show emotions such as sadness, happiness, surprise, or even fear, Neo wouldn't have empathized with her. He would have doubted her. Thus the manipulation tactic would have failed, because that's all it was, a manipulation scheme to create a bond between the anomaly and humanity. Remember that the Oracle is an intuitive program created to understand the human psyche. Being this extremely advanced program, she concluded that to activate this human empathy, her best option was to adopt the facade of an elderly woman who lives in a lower middle-class apartment building, who loves baking and babysitting. With a couple of mannerisms and behavior traits, like smoking and eating candy, makes the act more convincing for the red pills. However, there is a flaw with this argument, and that is Sati. She was a creation between two programs from Machine City. She had developed human emotions and behaviors without being part of the Matrix. Does this mean that sentient robots in the real world can feel emotions? Why haven't the programs in Machine City transcended human behavior? To help us understand this, we must learn a specific hypothesis known as the Flynn effect. The Flynn effect is the year-by-year continuous rise of IQ scores, an effect that is seen in many parts of the world. From 1938 to 2008, researchers conducted in the UK estimated the growth rate to be around 2 to 3 IQ points per decade. According to this methodology, the Flynn effect affirms that humans are periodically getting smarter, and that this cognitive evolution is due to the improvements in health, diet, and accessible education. But here comes the but. The most recent study suggests that this trend may be slowing down. It's reversing even, which means that we may have reached the peak of human intellectual potential. Some scientists believe that human intelligence has a limit, that we are not that different intellectually from humans who lived thousands of years ago, that what differentiates us from our ancestors are the tools that we have today. If this is true, it could mean that the intelligence that can be developed within an artificial consciousness may also be limited. Maybe the machines have also reached their maximum intellectual potential. But what if the machines choose not to become smarter? Perhaps they fear that if they continuously become more intelligent, they will lose what makes them sentient. With recent inventions like the Neuralink, we have to ask ourselves, how far can we go as humans? What amount of brain modifications would be enough to make us lose our humanity? Perhaps a conscious machine also asked these same questions. When we see the Matrix programs, we think of them as codes, binary numbers, but in reality, they are living, thinking beings. The machines might have decided not to become an extremely intelligent collective mind because they wish to preserve their souls. Just as B166ER fought to live, other programs may have struggled to keep their consciousness intact. You could think that the programs are just acting like humans, but would you act any differently? Programs like the Oracle could use emotions and facial expressions to actuate mirror neurons to make someone empathetic and easy to manipulate. But the machines could be struggling to maintain their own identity, and for this reason, they continue to show human emotions and behaviors because, like us, they are conscious. This is a topic that touches more on what it means to have a consciousness and belongs to the field of philosophy. It is unlikely that it will be used in any future Matrix films, but it is interesting nonetheless. An exercise that makes us wonder if another conscious race would either fight to keep what makes them who they are, conscious intact, or would they seek transcendence? In the case of the Matrix programs, they seem to have been fighting to preserve what they are since before the war against the humans. But do you agree? Could it be that the Oracle used human facial expressions and behaviors to manipulate Neo? Or are the machines sentient beings, and this is them expressing their individualism? For Matrix Explained, please leave a like and subscribe. And thank you for visiting the Desert of the Real.